Hi,
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay. And yourself?
I'm good.
So is it Tricia or Tricia?
Trisha.
Tricia, Tricia. So I was wrong on both.
It's okay.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
You as
This is
well.
actually, I
And
apologize. Yeah, I apologize for the lighting. This is the first time I'm doing a show while I'm traveling.
oh, yeah,
So,
that's hard.
yeah, the lighting at the moment is like really terrible. Did my best to adjust it, but anyways, here we are. So how's
It
your morning
happens.
so far?
It's good.
Yeah,
And do you pronounce your name Kino?
Kino, Kino.
Kino. Okay. Just making
You know,
sure.
yeah. It's good to get that out the way at the start.
Definitely.
Yeah. So thanks for coming on. I really do appreciate it, especially throughout the holiday season.
Well, thank you for
I
having me. I
guess
appreciate
you,
it too.
yeah, no problem. I mean, you're my second to last show for the year. I mean, that's a wrap. It's been quite exponential, exceptional year with the podcast. So, yeah, at least we're closing it down with, you know, amazing talent
Well,
based,
congratulations. Yes, I noticed all your
Yeah.
posts were amazing.
No, also you. I mean, the basic research I've done on you, you are quite an amazing author, creative, storyteller. So, yeah, a lot to unwrap on this show. So, I guess, before we get to the book at hand, I guess we can start with your career first, where it all started for you, going back to day one. Like, that's my first question with anyone that comes
Okay.
on the show first. Like, I love to know, like, where it all started. I mean, my primary reason for it is to also, up and coming authors or musicians, any form of creative, just to know, just like yourself, like me, we started somewhere where nobody would have expected we started. The the narrative, like you go online and then you Google Trisha and you'll be like, you know, look at her, she just got it just like that. But it's not the case. So I always love to start with that question, on where, authors actually started with the career.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, if you're comfortable with that, if you're comfortable to
Yeah,
going way
no, that
back.
sounds great. Yeah. I don't have the normal author story, so
Yeah. So I mean you can go for it. Floor is all yours.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't ever think I would be an author. I didn't, when I talk to a lot of authors, they usually say, "Oh, I loved writing from a kid. I always wrote in journals," but I didn't love writing. I didn't like writing until I got to grad school. I had my major professor taught me how to write. Of course, it was technical writing, but that was the first time I ever enjoyed writing, and I guess maybe because there was a formula to it, whereas before I'd always thought. I mean, I guess they teach you, 5 paragraph essays, and to me that was like, okay, well, this is one formula, but it didn't translate to a lot of other things for me. So I first loved technical writing, and then when I was staying home with my kids, I got bored a little bit and decided that I was going to write my own story. I suffered from anorexia as a young adult, and I started to write a story based on my experience with that. And, 8 years, not 8 years later, probably 5 or 6 years later, I had 200,000 words
Yeah.
of this manuscript that was mostly like a screenplay. Had a lot of dialogue, and I just was writing what I saw in my head for these characters. So I gave it to my sister-in-law, and she said, "Oh, this is great. You should do something with this." And I had a friend who is an editor and a self-published author, and she helped me edit the book, and that became my first two published books in the Being Me series. So the first book is This Me, and the second book is If I Could Fly. And then it's a 4 book series about a girl who's in college and develops anorexia, and it's really about her growth and recovery through that time in her life. So I wanted to really show a lot of people are stuck in that, either whether it's eating disorders, mental health, depression, any of those issues that a lot of people go through. It's hard to see the other side when you're in it. So I really wanted to show that story of hope there. And that's
Yeah.
sort of a
So it's
roundabout
like
way of how I got into writing, right?
so it's like topics that really hits a spot like deep with you that you want to address like in society, and then you just converted it into writing to educate other people out there about those diseases.
Right. I did choose to tell my story in a fictionalized account, just because it felt more comfortable for me, and I had fun with it along the way. And that was my first series. I quickly jumped into writing fantasy. So now I mostly write YA fantasy books, but also they have some elements of, I don't know if it's healing or recovery, or there's some elements of, real struggles we deal with in everyday life, right? Whether you're trying to fit in somewhere, or you're trying to, figure out what your purpose in life is, or any of those issues that we deal with through the growing up process.
Yeah. I mean, when I look at Drops of Sunshine, right? I mean, the question of is it fiction or non-fiction, comes to mind.
That
So
one is,
what would
yeah,
you
that one.
call it?
All my books are fiction. So some of them are loosely based on, well, the Being Me series is not loosely based on my experience with anorexia, but Drops of Sunshine was loosely based
Yeah.
on an experience I had as a camp counselor at a camp for the blind when I was in college. It was a really fun assignment and fun job working with kids and adults alike that would come to our camp. But Drops of Sunshine was my first fantasy slash paranormal book that I wrote after I wrote the Be Me series. So a girl is struggling with her parents' divorce and a scandal in her hometown, and she just wants to escape all of that. She decides to become this camp counselor out in the middle of the woods. But when she gets there, she realizes that some of the campers know things about her that they shouldn't know, or that she hasn't told them.
Yeah.
So it's this mystery around how do these campers learn private details about her life, and her discovery of that kind of helps her open up and heal from the tragedy she's been experiencing.
So like based on that, why would you brand it under fiction?
Because it is fiction. I mean, they're fictional characters. It's not.
Yeah,
It
okay.
wasn't
So you get like the
me, right?
fictional characters. Yeah. But like the storyline behind it, for me, it's like, non-fiction. This is like stuff that, can happen in reality, you know, can happen to a 16-year-old. So Nina may be, the, fictional character, but for me, I feel like there's a lot of like Ninas out there,
Right, definitely.
non-fictional
I mean,
Ninas out there.
right. I think that's what we do in fiction. We tell stories to help make sense of our lives a lot of times and help make sense of the
Yeah.
world.
It's that fine line between fiction and non-fiction.
Right. Sometimes.
That's how I took, that's how I took Drops of Sunshine. Like I just felt like, uh, of course I never read the whole book, but I mean, just like, bits and pieces offered was like, this actually, happens in real life, and especially the age that you selected, 16-year-olds, like I feel in society, like for what I've evaluated for myself, like that age itself, 16, we see a lot of this happening, in the world today. For my own personal evaluation, my own personal opinion, at that age.
Right.
So
Those
that
are critical
whole
ages of, you get more responsibility, and what are you going to do with that responsibility, and how are you going to handle all your stress and angst, I guess,
yeah.
that happens.
Yeah, so what more can you like you say, okay, but of course not, go into detail, of course we want listeners to actually, purchase the book and, read it themselves. But like any underlining like, comments you want to like say about it. Like what is,
Right. Well, it's a fun
any
book. I
other form of
mean,
inspiration?
yeah, it's a fun book. She goes to this camp, and she makes some friends and she makes some enemies, and she makes some bad choices and has to get out of those, and there's a little bit of a romance subplot too, so that's fun. And I loved one of the reviews I got one time. It was like, brings back the feeling of campfires and singing around the campfire and rainbows and all of those feel good things is
Yeah.
what I went for. So
It's like, I'm gonna go back to like being 16 years old in 2024. It's like in your book of, instead of facing the trauma that Nina was going through, she actually seeked out to find some form of distraction in a
right,
relationship. I've seen that happen also in reality.
right,
Instead of actually facing the trauma hands on, you find yourself, or a young lady will find himself in a relationship, which can, a high percentage of the time be like a toxic relationship to take you away and distract you from the trauma itself. So it doesn't really like heal you, but you expect the relationship is actually going to heal you, but it actually sort of like make things worse.
compounds things sometimes, right? When we're young, it's and adults may do it too sometimes, right? Like we don't always
Yeah,
deal with
yeah,
things the
yeah.
way as in the most healthiest that we probably could, but especially during that age, right? When you're a teenager, you just try to figure it out on your own sometimes if you don't have like healthy things mirrored to you. So why not like run to a camp and get a new boyfriend?
Yeah. Or like not even like in a camp. So like what, from a traumatic point of view, like what would be your personal opinion on why does that happen? You know,
And
like why, okay, why did you choose that option? You know,
why do females choose
was
that option? I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
know.
Why
Yeah.
why choose that option?
Um well, and maybe it's a distraction and a safety factor too. You're looking maybe for someone else to take care of you a little bit.
True, true.
And
Yeah, yeah,
right.
yeah.
And
That, yeah.
and if the person is saying that they like you, then that makes you feel good, right? That gives you good feelings about yourself. Um, so all of those factors I think come into play when, hey, my family's messed up, let's get a new boyfriend.
It's like what was missing, now you want to find it in someone else.
Maybe so,
And then
right?
just leads to, yeah, some other form of, like disaster after that. Yeah. But I mean, that's why I say, that fine line between fiction and non-fiction, it always pops up in my mind. Like bulk of the authors that I've had on the podcast, over the weeks, we'll call it fiction. I'm like, nah, but there's this fine line. Like I just feel like, the stuff happens in reality, you know, but it's the creator's job. As you said, you use that to actually try to tell people through storytelling to like how to fix whatever they may be going through in their life. Just a story can tell you that. And even watching like a movie or a series today, you know, someone may be going through like some soapy, that's, that defines someone's love life. You're like, oh, no, okay, that's happening to me. So, yeah, now I know how to go about it. But sometimes not always the case. It doesn't really like, really fix it.
Well, yeah, and I'm
So,
not going to claim to have all the answers or to be certified in anything. So,
yeah, yeah. Like it was yesterday. I had so this is my own personal podcast, and I'm a co-host of another podcast which is called Talking Back to Suicide. And the guest that we had on, yesterday, is more or less, down the line of, how you defining it. The topic just comes up, the psychology behind the decisions that we make, um, you know, all the time. So it's also, so there's like a trend for me. It's just like, this trend, that I see that's happening with, a lot of people. But I mean, like, he's, at the end of that conversation, he says, as creators, any form of creators, our main and primary responsibility is to help someone through our art, and storytelling, and especially like with your story, to find out how it ends. Of course, listeners need to go out and need to read the book. Like, what is the conclusion for Nina and her life, with that trauma? Or maybe there's a sequel. I don't know, We'll see what happens next with you with that. But, it's our responsibility to help people such as the Ninas of the world, if I have to use that as an example. And he had a very strong point on that. And I believe that to actually be true. Myself as a musician, okay, yes, I do blog, but yourself as a writer, as an author, or just a painter, we have a responsibility in society to use our art to actually help and assist people out there. And I feel like with your work itself, it does. Like, especially, as I said, once again, going back to that specific age group, for myself, I've evaluated, and just recently this year as well, someone going through a traumatic experience at 16 years old, instead of actually facing the trauma, is actually looking for love in the wrong place to someone else.
I think it can be common, and I think, when you do have trauma or diversity or adversity, I guess I would say, in your life, and people help you through that, then I feel a sense of, I want to help people because I want to give back, and I don't want people to maybe make the same mistakes I did. I mean, you can't keep everyone from making every mistake, but
Yeah.
when you're in that place, just to hear someone say, "Oh, this happened to me, and you can get through this," was important for me, and I think it's important for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, definitely. Look, you can't save the whole world with your work. As humans, we are going to make mistakes. That's what makes us human. None of us are perfect, in any form of way. That's why, going back to the start of the podcast, why I say I love to always ask, creators, where did it all start for you? Because it wasn't a perfect start as people may portray it to be. If you go online and search Google, on Google today, about a specific person, it's not always a perfect start. And that's what tends to inspire them, like with my audience and with my listeners. So when it comes to, like, are you independent or are you working through a publishing company
I'm an
or
indie
publishing
publisher.
house? They would love to
Yeah,
say
I'm
it.
indie published. I publish my own books. So.
You indie publish, so you got your own
Yeah.
publishing firm. Okay, that's
Yeah,
quite cool.
it's my
So,
company. I've only published my books so far, so I don't really have any plans to
yeah.
expand that. But yeah.
So any plans to expand, as in bringing other authors in, like under
No,
your umbrella?
probably not. Yeah, I don't think I have the capability. That's not my expertise, I guess. I would probably have to
Yeah.
bring so many people in to do it because I don't edit. I don't, do graphics or any of those things. I just write.
But like, I had the same feeling for myself, like within the music industry. So, I mean, okay, when COVID happened, like there was enough time on the table to actually self-educating oneself. If you actually utilize the time that you had, and not waste it, while sitting at home, like I also had the same feelings, like, can I really do it myself? Can I really compete? But I don't like to use the word compete. I love to use the word collaborate. That's what, like, my message I like to, like, get out to, like, the music industry itself. It's about collaboration now. It's not about competition. And I have the same feelings. And you'll be surprised how much that other, in your case now, that other up and coming authors don't know. Because none of them know, which direction to actually go to actually self-publish their own work. And you just automatically become this house where independent, in my case, artists come to you, and in your case, where independent authors can just come knock your door, like, Tricia, can you, like, help us? We don't know where to get started. And then, your strengths may not be graphic design, but then it's so easy to, like, source those indie graphic designers now, and then you bring them in. Like, that's like the model, like, I have, like, with my record label. I have no one that works for me and I work for no one, but we all have a partnership agreement. So if your strength is graphic designing, so when it comes to designing, the album art cover or a book cover now, in your instance, you'll outsource it there. I think where people get very worried, is when it comes to the finances to actually back up their projects. because at the end of the day, it does cost money. For you to self-publish your book, it does cost money. So that's where, like, they can be like skeptical. Okay, can I trust, Tricia, or can I trust Kino when they're saying, okay, you know what, this is how much you actually will need upfront to do it. But I mean, in the last 4 weeks, you're the third author that I've had that's, completely independent. Other authors, their fear is, okay, if we're going to compete with the traditional system, we have to pay in advance. Now if you get signed to a publishing house, they pay you in advance. If you get signed to a mainstream record label, they pay in advance. So we can't pay, that advance. Some authors is like, the time and energy, do we have it in our capacity to actually do it? Because we want to focus on our work. So now if I'm going to sign on another author, I take on the responsibility now of editing as well.
Right.
That person's work before I actually take it, to market. So now it's just off topic, but you never know where it can really take you, because since I've been having authors like on the podcast, right? Before it was only like, music industry professionals on the podcast, but since I've been having like authors on the podcast, there's so many similarities, That's why the entertainment industry has so many components to it. And there's so many similarities, It's just on one hand, one person is publishing music, on the other hand, one person is publishing books. But there's so many similarities when it comes to the pros and cons, the challenges that we face, being independent. It's common. So what would you say, like, how long have you been independent? I think that would be like
I have been publishing since 2015, so almost 10 years. I've been publishing my own books. Just surrounding yourself with really good people, good editors, good cover people. And you're not always going to get the right information. I've taken a lot of courses, and sometimes you get led astray, but it happens. You just have to be smart and you have to keep going. I think people that do it because they love it a lot of times, not necessarily because it's paying their bills. But it's a fun industry to be in, and I have a podcast and talk to authors as well, and it's just really fun to talk to them. And you're right. I read a book called Be the Gateway, and I'll think of the author, but it's about marketing for creatives, and it's about how to like attract the people that would be attracted, because obviously there's 8 billion people in the world, and not every person is going to love your brand of music or is going to love your type of book, or so how do you present yourself correctly so that you're attracting your people, right? Because you only need to attract the kind of people that would be interested in what your art is, right? So
yeah. It's like, what I love to say is you need to be the first you, not the second somebody else. As up and coming creatives, like, we want to, okay, yes, cool, we can have like role models and people that inspire us within the industry itself, but their audience is not necessarily going to be your audience, right? So you put 2 authors on the table, okay, the genre may be the same, but out of 7 billion people in the world, your audience and my audience is not going to be the same. So it's about actually looking at the data, like, where is my audience? I need to focus on my audience, and I need to create material for my audience. There's so many creators that are marketing their work to the wrong people, and expecting some kind of, ROI that's, going to make the eyes go big. Not just financially, but as in growth-wise as well. Like, look, people are actually reading my book, or people are actually listening to my music. There's a lot of creators, that are just focusing on the wrong audience. You see, so, while I was self-educating myself, I ended up becoming like a consultant now for independent artists, and that's where I saw people were actually going wrong. When I look at my music alone, and I look at the data that's provided for me by all the platforms out there that distribute, I'm sure for you, like with Amazon, you get analytics. Okay, I don't know. Do they give you analytics, like, to say how your sales
they give you analytics on how many you sell and who you sell to and where, but they don't give you analytics on how many people clicked and didn't buy, I guess. So they don't give you all of that necessarily.
All of that. So as an author, like as an author, how do you don't just throw in the question out there. So how do you like pin down the data to who's my demographics, for example? If they're just giving you how many people have bought, is there like systems or platforms online where you can actually pick up and like pin it down to like country?
Maybe there
pin it
are.
down to...
Maybe I'm not smart enough to know that yet. But yeah, I mean,
I
I
don't think it
know
has
the
anything to
people.
do. I think it's smart enough.
I know the people
Yeah.
that like follow my page on like Facebook and Instagram, and so I know demographics for that, and I'm assuming that that is, you know, mimicking who's buying, right? So yeah.
Right. Interesting. It's interesting. You know, I'm just thinking about it now. I never ever brought up that question before. Maybe because, you know, we never touch on, you know, the data itself when it comes to authors. So that's
But that's a good question. I should research if Amazon could give you that information. But my account doesn't tell me that information right off the bat. So
There probably is a platform. I mean, in this digital era, I mean, there probably is. Like, you know, like as I say, like for me, like, you know, like, okay, I'm gonna use Spotify, for example. Okay, everybody knows Spotify. So like Spotify as an artist now, they have like a separate account for that, Spotify for artists. So like if I go into like my Spotify for artists, it's gonna give me all the data. It's gonna give me, you know, my countries from 1 to 100. You know, it's gonna give me my top 10 countries on who is actually listening to my music or the podcast. You know, it gives me all those analytics. It goes down to age group. It tells me, okay, Kino, you know, your audience, either music or podcast is like, you know, it's combined. It's like from 18 to 35. It gives me that. It goes even deeper to say, okay, within that specific country, these are your regions. So if I use the States, for example, it's going to tell me New York. It's going to tell me, you know, Arizona. Okay, that's a state, but, you know, it's going to give me that. Sorry. So I actually know where to target if I want to use online marketing. There's no point if, you know, the podcast is getting more listeners in the States or in the UK, but I'm attempting to spend most of my marketing budget for an audience in Australia. You know, it makes like, you know, no sense at all, you know, with that. So yeah, that's interesting, you know. But I'm sure it's out there, you know. Like I think I'm, you know, like okay, I got one more author that's next week Monday, and then, you know, I'm waiting for the January schedule. I think I'm gonna bring up this question more and more, like how do authors actually, you know, monitor where exactly is their presence? You know, like for you said, okay, you use your social medias to actually evaluate, okay, you know, who's my audience. So yeah. It's quite interesting to see.
When you do Amazon ads, you can get all that data from the ads, like how many people click the ad and how many. So, I guess the ad data would tell you that, right?
Yeah, I guess also reviews could assist as well. Like, I mean, if you like someone gives you a review, I'm sure they like saying, okay, from where they're from, you know, so that gives you an idea of like which country or which state, you know, is actually, you know, digging my work. That could actually, you know, work as well.
Right, because on Goodreads, which is associated with Amazon, if somebody writes a review, then you could look at their profile and see where they're from, or if they put information there. If they don't put information there, then you wouldn't.
Yeah, if they do put the information there. Yeah. So anything else like you can share? Like, I mean, being in the independent space, like pros and cons, you know, of it. And the reason I also asked that is like I had an author from Egypt, and she was with the publisher. Then the publisher actually passed away. The wife took over the company. So, you know, she doesn't know, you know, the future of the company. Now she's looking for a new publisher. I was like, okay, why don't you self-publish? She's like, no, self-publishing is not for me. I just want to focus on what I do, and that's writing. You know, let me hand over all the admin, the editing, and so on to someone else. You know, let them do what they actually do. So would you like, what would pros and cons, like for yourself as an independent.
Right. Yeah. So I think I mentioned before, finding good people, finding a good editor, finding good cover people that you trust is really important. So you can pick those people. But I like having that control. Like it would be hard for me to turn over control of my storyline if a publisher decided, we wanted this to go a different way, or and I'm also not very patient. So I did query my first book for about 6 months and then said, oh, never mind, I'll just self-publish. So I'm not sure. When I talked to other published authors, they waited 2 and 3 years to get their publishing deal. So,
Sure.
but I just wasn't that patient. So I like my control, and I like, I can do my own schedule. But like you said, the other lady was like, nope, I don't want to worry about any of that. I'll just let someone else do it. So yeah, it just depends on what you're comfortable with, what you like. Yeah.
But I mean, you said something that's key there. You have full creative control.
Right.
What you want to put in your book, you can put in your book. There's going to be no red tape, not someone at the top, because the end of the day is, a huge publishing house is just concerned more about bottom line than anything else. That's their main priority. Or how do we recuperate? Okay, we're investing in you, but now we need to recuperate. And of course, they have a set team for that. And that set team is not always going to be in sync with how you want to get your brand and your message out to the world. So, I mean, that's like at the top, when it comes to like a pro being independent. But how have you, yeah. I mean, so how have you, what would you say to up and coming authors out there who would love to self-publish, be independent because they know they got full creative control, but unfortunately, at the moment, it's they stuck between being independent or sourcing out a publishing house because of the financial aspect of it. They don't have the funds to get going and so on. And that's what, as I said that before now, that's the fear.
Right. I think that the smaller publishing houses are a good middle of the road for that. I think a lot of times, the smaller publishing houses provide an editor, but don't have maybe a set idea of what a book has to be beforehand, and maybe gives the author more control in that way. They just publish the book. They don't direct the path. I think some of the smaller publishing houses are, and it's kind of a hybrid model almost too, because obviously you don't get the big advances, but you may share royalties, or I don't know how all the agreements are structured, but I think it's the middle of the road. It's interesting because mostly when I talk to authors, they say the biggest thing is marketing, and especially with a small publishing house, you might not get much marketing support. And I mean, the big ones obviously do, but even with mid-grade publishing houses, sometimes you're still doing your own marketing. So
yeah. I mean, it works the same with the music industry now. These days, even if you do get signed by a mainstream record label, they still expect you to do the marketing. Now your CV is not your talent any longer. It used to be your talent. Now it counts for 20% of it. 80% is that if I'm going to sign you to my label or to my publishing house, show me how many followers you have on Facebook, on TikTok, on Instagram. What's your presence online? That's what they're looking for. So you could be a terrible creator in whatever you're doing, okay? But for some reason, you have, great influence online. You manage to get great influence online, you will get signed. So that can also become demotivating for a lot of extremely talented people out there. So, that's why I use, it does become demotivating. Where do I start? You've mentioned marketing twice now during our conversation. So marketing seems to be at the top of the list of an issue, a roadblock for a lot of creators.
I think it is a big pain point, yeah. Because it's not our first, it's not something we know. A lot of people know. Maybe more now.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And especially with advances with technology at the moment, which is changing every day, you always have to change your strategy. You have to change your strategy and how you're going to go about it. I guess being signed to a publishing house, they are going to get you into bookstores to do signings and so on. That can be a benefit. Now you have to do it yourself. You actually have to approach the bookstores and say, okay, what, can I have like a day where I can actually like come in and I can actually,
Right.
have a
It's
table
just how
set
much
up
work
that's
you
like,
want to put into it versus how much you can hire to have someone else do it. Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, marketing is a pain point throughout the whole industry at the moment. That's what I can gather from all of this.
Interesting.
That's honestly what I can gather. The trend that's happening on your podcast, at least. So, I mean, so since you have like your own podcast and you're chatting to a lot of other authors out there on the topic of artificial intelligence, do you see it as something that's going to be beneficial towards your own personal career and authors out there, or do you see it as a threat?
Some people are totally fine with it and say, hey, this is my model for writing a book. I say I want X character in X setting, and it can give me the start of a storyline. And so that's how I start my storylines. It's sort of an idea generator for them. I've talked to authors who do that. And then there are other authors that are completely opposed to using any kind of AI. I don't use AI. I haven't, but I haven't even played around with it. So usually, you can tell when something is written by AI or something is read by AI. It just sounds different. It doesn't sound human, for lack of a better way of putting it. So I think, consumers are going to choose that too. I think it's going to be dictated by a consumer who is going to read something and say, this seems weird, or listen to something and say, the intonation is wrong somehow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think
But
it's
it's
just
like,
what people get used to and what people want to hear and listen to and read.
yeah. One thing to keep in mind on what you said on, you can look at something or you can read a piece of material and you can automatically pick up that, look, this doesn't look organic to me. But you see, your brain has that capabilities as a creator to actually pick up on that. And we have to also keep in mind, that the technology is getting more and more advanced as each day passes. But to the average consumer out there, reader or listener, because we also got now AI, in music as well, their brains are working differently, And now there's a lot of people out there to make a quick buck, is using AI to create books. There's platforms that can create your ebook in 5 minutes. It's out there. They can use that. They upload it. It's on Amazon. Boom, that's it. So that could also be like, why us, we can pick up. Like I could listen to a piece of sound and be like, okay, this is organic or this was AI created. But to the average person out there, and like with the latest stats on the music side of things, people are starting to dig AI music, AI generated music, So it's like, the cherry on top of the cake, when it comes to the questions asked, like, on the podcast, when it comes to creators, like, where do you see it going? Because it's getting more and more advanced. It's getting smarter in the sense of, okay, as you said, there's authors that that are using AI to like get started. And now, because of the advancements that's happening on a daily basis, you could just keep telling it to, okay, re-edit this paragraph, make it more authentic, and boom, it's done. And there's some pieces of material that I've read that I'll be like, oh, I really can't tell the difference here. I really can't tell it because it's just learning and learning and learning. The machine just keeps learning and learning. So the more you're telling it, okay, keep this piece or keep this piece more authentic, comes at. So for authors, it's like, some are for it, some are not for it, as you said. And some are not concerned about it because they said, at the end of the day, is my writing has emotion behind it. AI will never have that. Experts in the music industry have said the same thing. For me, I'm just like in the middle at the moment. You know, I'm like 50-50. You know, there's just too much investment that's going into it. There's too much crowdfunding that's happening with it at the moment. You know, I can't really like put it on what's the future for organic creators at the moment. You know, I can't
It is
really
hard to
like
know
come
because
to.
AI is going to create more competition. I mean, we're competing, and you said you don't talk about competition, but the number of songs out there, the number of music pieces, and the number of
Yeah,
books, is growing every day. Those created by humans, and then if you add in those created by AI, that's a whole. It could be exponential of how many pieces
yeah,
are
yeah,
out
yeah,
there, right?
yeah. I guess the best piece of advice like I can give to creators. Now it feels like you interviewing me. Like, like the best piece I can give creators is to, you know, use, especially between now and 2030. So let's just say over the next 2 years, or as fast as possible, like when it comes to the marketing, is build a solid, intimate relationship with the audience that you already have. Focus on that audience. At times we so focus on getting more and more people in. We want to get more followers, we want to build our audience, that we fail to focus on our loyal supporters out there. So if I have 1,000 people, for example, could be more, could be less. So I have 1,000 people, I need to start forming like a solid, intimate relationship with 1,000 people, because I know, at least for my lifespan, these 1,000 people are going to stick with me. They are always going to have my back no matter what happens with AI. Focus on that audience. Get to know them like on a personal level. If there's any advice like, I can give out to people that I am personally doing for myself as well, is focus on that people. If I know where these people are, I focus on them. So if I'm doing, from where you're from, locally, your community, if you got people there, you focus on them, because they are always going to have your back. So that no matter what advancements happen with AI, and no matter how many AI writers come to the table, and I'm sure there's plenty of them coming to the table each and every single day, just because they want to benefit financially out of it. But if I got this 1,000, 1,000, or even if it's 1 million supporters that are backing me, I know that my next organic book that will take me 2 years to finish, the moment it's released, they are definitely going to purchase it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's about building those relationships. I mean, just like with any product, you build relationship with your buyer, with your consumer, and they become your biggest fans. And if they become your biggest fans, then they're going to tell their friends. So they are your most prized possession, really. The people that know you, like you, love your stuff, right?
Exactly. Yeah, because they know you personally. That's the era we're living. If I have to look before 2020, you could release something, creators didn't really pay attention to the fans on an intimate level. Before, the digital era just continued to grow and grow and grow. They shouldn't pay attention. Look at the music industry, how it migrated from, vinyls to cassettes to CDs. Now it's online. Music stores are starting to close down. Physical music stores, at least, are starting to close down. So at the time when artists were still pushing out even cassettes and CDs, there wasn't really an intimate relationship that you really had. But now it's changing. Now more than ever, there's more opportunities available for creators, but also build an intimate relationship. That's how you're going to sustain yourself. That's my honest opinion. That's advice I'm putting out there to people, with regards to AI. I don't see AI as a threat. You just need to know how to play the game. And if you play the game correctly, based on information and data, you'll be able to sustain yourself. Or a lot of people are just, or companies as well, are just going to be shut down.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I have a hard time paying attention to too much at one time. So I tend to be the kind of person that's like, okay, I'm paying attention to what I need to pay attention to right now.
Yeah, which is good. And I feel where you're coming from. And yeah, we end up in situations, it's becoming so overwhelming with all this happening in the world, right? It's becoming overwhelming. and they keep your eye on each and every single thing and each and every single development that's happening. It becomes really, I mean, I know I'm speaking from personal experience here, like really, it becomes overwhelming because you'll be in a situation where, okay, you'll be focused on something because there's been new development, with this piece of software that could help us, with our composition. I'm just using this as an example. And then tomorrow, like you go on, and what I do, which is a habit of mine, is I like to see the next day what's, in the news, or not like general news, like flood happening here or whatever the case may be, what's happening like in the music industry, what's happening in the creator world. And then all of a sudden, you will come across, there's been a new development with this. Yesterday we were working on this, trying to integrate this piece of software. Now there's this piece of software. So which way do you go, with it? So we're going to see a lot of changes, creators overall, next few years. So I say, we can just focus on the audience that we have now. We'll never be, a threat. But if you just turn a blind eye to it and be like, oh, sorry,
my newsletter subscriber group I feel like it's like my book family, because they reply to my emails that I send out, and I write special stories for them that they only get, and they know they can email or ask me a question, or they ping in my email every day. So it's a lot of fun just to talk to those people.
Exactly. You see, what you're doing right there is perfect. Is 100% perfect. You're being innovative and you're reaching out through different means. Through different means. Yeah, I recall also a recent conversation, I had with another creator. It was like, you can't just make the book and, put the book on Amazon and boom, that's it, just leave it there. Nothing's going to happen. Right? Nothing is really going to happen. It's just going to remain there. That's the easy part. Even though it took you 2 years to write that book and then publish it, get it out there, put it there, that's the easy part. You need to get people there. You need to get people there. Now you need to build your brand, your own personal brand. You need to invest some way. I mean, it's either going to cost you time, money, or both. You choose. But you're going to need to put an investment. You can't just be like, okay, my book is on Amazon now. Let me chill out, relax. It'll sell. It doesn't work that way. Yeah, it really doesn't work.
Not unless you're very lucky.
So, extremely lucky. Honestly, extremely lucky. Please, if you come across an author that's been that lucky, please can I meet them? Please.
Yes, I think it's certain topics. Like I knew an author that wrote a book about downsizing and decluttering, and her book sells like gangbusters. So obviously a lot of people feel like they want to downsize and declutter.
Right. Okay, I feel you on that. Okay, that's quite cool. So what's next for you? What's next for the year ahead? Are you planning any new material? What's next?
Yes, so like I said, Drops of Sunshine was my first fantasy or paranormal book. And since then, I have 2 fantasy series, the Kingdom Journal series, as well as the Realm Chronicle series. And I just finished the finale to the Realm Chronicle series, so that will be published in next July of 2025. So I'm really excited about that. I love being able to finish a series with my readers, so I'm excited to see what they think about the ending of that. That's also kind of sad too, because I hate to stop writing about my characters, but I think it's a good ending for them. So I'm excited about getting that into my hands with my readers. And I produce audiobooks based on those series too, so I'm going to continue with that. Hit a little snag with my narrator, so I'm interviewing new narrators, so that'll be fun, and just picking the right one and moving forward.
Yeah. So like with the audiobooks, is there something that you also enjoy? I know some authors don't really focus much on audiobooks.
Oh, I love them. I love hearing my characters' voices, and I listen to my audiobooks in the car all the time because it's so fun and brings me so much joy. So it's just finding the right narrator and making sure you can get the right voice for your character. Yeah, and I think it's a great medium for books.
Do you ever use your own voice?
I haven't done that. No, I tried reading my own book one time. I went to an organization that reads or records books for the blind, and they had me sit in a booth, and I was so nervous. I did such a horrible job. I might be able to do better if with practice and coaching, but so far I've just hired narrators.
Yeah. I guess, it's self-awareness, what's my strengths, what's my weaknesses, which is very, good to understand, that about yourself. Like if you're not good at, being a narrator, okay, put someone there to actually do it. I'll do the writing, you go into studio. Yeah.
Right.
But do you enjoy yourself, like personally, like listening to audiobooks?
Yes, I read most of my books I listen to most of my books. I guess that's the way to put it. Right. Because, I can listen in the car while I'm doing my chores, while I'm running, exercising.
Yeah.
And those count to me.
Cool.
I did get a post on my social media the other day that said it didn't count, but I'm counting them. So,
yeah. Okay, no, that's cool. That's cool. So, as far as your online presence is concerned, where can people find you?
The best place is my website, triciacopeland.com, TriciaCopeland.com. And you can go there and get some free short stories, which are intros to my work, and see all my published books there.
Okay, perfect. No, I'll definitely put your website, always there anyway. Put the website first, in the description. Put it there. So that's about it, like fast. So, like as far as Facebook is concerned, Instagram, no account there.
No, yeah, I do have Facebook, Instagram. I have a TikTok account. I have a Twitter account. My YouTube channel has a lot of my content from my podcast as well, and trailers. So that's a lot of fun. But it's all under Tricia Copeland author or author Tricia Copeland. One variation of that.
Okay, perfect. So I'll know what to look for, and I'll put that on as well. But anyway, it's been a pleasure chatting to you, especially at this time of the year, making the time to actually come on.
Well, thank you. I wish you a happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays. Like that's why I was like concerned. Like I thought, okay, for myself, just like completely off topic. Yeah, I was like, just conclude yesterday. While I'm in my studio, and that's it. Then do the traveling I need to do throughout this period. But then, I was like, Mickey had your publicist, he had two more. He's like, let's do this two more. So I'm like, okay, let me give it a shot. Like while on the road, see, how it goes. But so this is another experience for me.
Well, I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
No. Thanks is all on my end. But I wish you all the best, for the remainder of 2024 and 2025. All the best with your work to come. Who knows what the future holds? We might just chat again, and we take it from there.
That sounds good. Thank you. I'm wishing you the best in 2025 too.
Yeah, thanks. Now it's been exciting. Look, I enjoy reading both fiction and non-fiction. So to have got an opportunity to start now interacting and having conversation with authors, is being also like a learning curve, for me as well. But I just think it's also happened, like for a reason as well, because the challenges that I see happening, especially in the independent spaces, which is where I'm mainly focused on, is helping up and coming creators. I see why this actually happened for me and why the universe wanted it to actually happen, because now I can see, okay, how to start bridging that gap as well. Because just as much as I find a lot of up and coming artists, there's also authors, that just don't have that direction, which way to go. So the value that you bring and all the other authors that brought to the podcast, like I got so much gratitude for that, because, this can actually assist a lot of people as well, that tune in.
Well, thank you. Yes,
So thank
we
you.
appreciate you.
So the thanks is actually for me. You guys are doing all the hard work. You
No,
guys,
no, no.
and just to be yeah, just to be humble enough, to appear on podcasts, especially independent podcasts with the independent audience. I truly appreciate that.
Well, I
that
appreciate it too. So thank you.
yeah. Okay, cool. Enjoy the rest of your day. Happy holidays once again. Have a blessed Christmas. All the best to you and your family. Hope it's a good one.
You too. Bye.
Okay, bye.